Welcome back to Obsession Engineering. It's time to do a bit more work on the CB500. If you're not familiar with the concept of this fine motorcycle, this is a £600 28-year-old Honda CB500. And on the longest day of the year, along with a group of other, let's be frank, idiots, I'm going to ride this bike from Land's End to John O'Groats in a day without using motorways. So yes, this 500cc Honda is going to do nearly 1,000 miles of not the fastest way to get anywhere. And we're doing this to raise money for Cancer Research UK, hence why it's been named the Cancer Beater. So we all know how horrendous cancer can be. It kills people, but it does more than that. It rips people's lives apart. It destroys families. It is awful, just, yeah, horrendous. And so the work that Cancer Research UK do is really, really critical because they are finding cures and treatments for cancer to extend people's lives, to fight against it, to actually cure people. And so that's why this less than glamorous Honda is really, really important. So please, click in the link in the corner. Give money to Cancer Research UK. They are fighting cancer and saving lives. Please, click that now while I get back onto this and see if we can actually make it roadworthy. So last time I was working on the mighty Cancer Beater, I was improving the brakes, which, let's be honest, are quite important. So I fitted new pads, I've serviced the calipers, and I've fitted braided brake hoses to replace the 28-year-old original rubber ones. So while I was trying to improve the brakes on the Honda, what I actually did was ruined them. Because as I was bleeding the brakes, the master cylinder seals gave up the ghost. They have had enough after 10 years of sitting idle. They decided they didn't like moving. And annoyingly, a master cylinder rebuild kit for this master cylinder is 50 quid. I could buy a complete replacement master cylinder off the internet for less than £20. But that strikes me as a worryingly small amount for a brake master cylinder. Then on my way to work today, I remembered something. I've recently done a ZXR400 project and converted that to radial brake. So when I actually checked upstairs, it turns out I have two front brake master cylinders for a ZXR400. This one even has a brake switch on it, which is excellent. And before I decided to go radial, I also bought a master cylinder rebuild kit. And because it's an aftermarket one, it was only a few quid. And so what I'm going to do today is service one of these master cylinders with that seal kit and then fit it to the mighty Cancer Beater. So out of my two master cylinder options, I've decided to go with this one. It has an original lever on it. And even though the original lever has a little bit of crash damage, they tend to be better made. So the pattern ones, I have known before the actual adjusters to fall out of them while people are riding around, and then your brakes aren't particularly brilliant. And so we want to avoid that by having this one. And to be fair, it looks like it was damaged quite a long time ago and the lever is still intact, so we're going to go with this one. I have taken the brake switch off the other one so we can use it on this. And my other reason for using this one is, I'm not quite sure why, but this one's got a 6mm mounting hole in the top of the master cylinder. And that means we can run a bracket to the reservoir and hold the reservoir in place, which will make life a little bit easier because the original reservoir master cylinder had the reservoir built into it and this one's not going to. And so we need some way to hold that. And so I can run a bracket from there to there, just make life a little bit easier. So the next thing I need to do is take the lever off it. So 10mm nut, well M6 nut with a 10mm spanner and a screwdriver, take the lever off and then I can access the bit where I actually change the innards. Right, so slightly fiddly, but pull the rubber boot out and then down here in amongst all the muck is a little circlip. We need to get some circlip pliers in that, release that, and we should then be able to slide the giblets out. To get this circlip out has been particularly awkward because my circlip pliers don't actually fit down the hole between the piston and the bore, so I've had to get in a pick and basically like flick the ends up of the circlip, which has been a little bit time consuming, but we're getting there now, so we can just tweak the circlip out, because then all of this can come out as one piece. So there we go. That's what's inside your master cylinder. Basically like a piston with two different seals on it and a spring at the end to push everything into place. And as you can see from that one, it's in really quite unpleasant condition. And so we'll get the new one out of the packet. We'll clean up in the bore inside the master cylinder, give that a good clean first, and we'll slide the new one into place. This has turned into a right palaver in the end. I then realised that this piston is actually slightly different in length to this one, and then when I measured it, it's a different diameter. So that was never ever the right one for this master cylinder. Right, annoyance over. So then I thought, well, I'll just clean this one up and put it back in, but I'd already messed around with the seals on it, so I decided to bin that one as well. And so in the end, I've taken the piston assembly out of the other master cylinder I had, thrown the body away, and put that into the body I actually want. Now, the seals look okay, but we won't really know until we get some pressure behind it whether they're actually going to work properly. So they're in there with a little bit of the correct red rubber grease. So now I'm going to mount that on the bike and see if we can actually get this to work. If not, all of a sudden the 50 quid for an original Honda master cylinder seal kit seems like a really good idea. Master cylinder fitted, plumbed up to my new brake line. I've even fitted an Obsession Engineering reservoir bracket, available from obsessionengineering.co.uk. So that holds the reservoir nicely. I've got a bit of fluid through it, and it's no good at all. It just doesn't actually pump anything. It just moves the fluid forward and backwards. It's crap. And then I got a bit annoyed. So I'm getting quite annoyed because something simple like fixing a front brake shouldn't take me, well, half a day so far, but it is sucking up the time. What I should have done probably is just committed to buying a 50 quid seal kit, but it didn't really feel like it was in the spirit of the longest day challenge, doing things on a budget thing. And so I have tried to use stuff I just had lying around. Turns out it's all crap, which is why it's lying around. And then I remembered I do actually have something that will do the job absolutely perfectly and isn't crap, because it was taken off a perfectly good road bike not long ago. That's the master cylinder off my V4 Tuono, which will fit, will work, will do everything I needed to do, and is currently sat under my bench because I put a hell one on that bike. So, going to put this one on it, and that'll only mean I've wasted 4 hours of my day faffing around with old crap. It's for a good cause. Enjoy my pain, donate money. That will make it worth it. That's gone considerably better. Bolt it on, tighten it up. It has actually got a bleed nipple at the top, so it's really quick to bleed. And once I got to bleeding, I'm not joking, 2, maybe at a push, 3 minutes. And that is absolutely bang on. You can see the reflection because the brake light is working, because I've adapted the ends, poked them in there. I will tape all that up so it actually holds together. But there we go, a front brake that works. I will admit the lever is decidedly firm, because that master cylinder is spec'd up to run 2 4-piston calipers, not 1 2-piston sliding caliper. So it is a bit overkill, and it might not generate a massive amount of feel, but it works. And that, for now, will do. So it's time to move on to the next thing, which is tyres. As we've learnt with pistons in brake master cylinders, rubber goes off over time. And that definitely still goes when we're talking about tyres. Most manufacturers recommend 10 years is the sort of time limit for tyres. Those are 18 years old, and although they look like they've got good tread and they're actually holding air, I don't really want to have to ride around on them. And tyres, like brakes, are exclusive of the budget, so I have splashed out on a new pair of tyres, because this bike is going to do mileage, and at some point I'm hoping to use some of the grip it has available, and I don't want to test how much grip they've got. So those are coming out, some new ones are going in. To put into perspective how cheap 600 quid budget is for a motorbike nowadays, I have just fitted a set of Dunlop Arrow Max Sport Smart. They're brand new, and I'd like to thank again the lovely folks at Hoco Parts for sorting me out a deal to get a bit of a discount on these. But bear in mind, these tyres cost more than half what I paid for the whole bike. Yeah, 600 quid. Doesn't get you a lot of motorbike these days, and that has to get from Land's End to John O'Groats in a day. So, yes, this is a challenge. Right, other things I've done, I cleaned the rear caliper and fitted some new rear pads while we were in there, and so the servicing is basically done. But, of course, we're not actually finished because the dangly indicator isn't the only problem with the indicators. The main problem is they don't actually work. So I think the next thing to do is probably fix these. Smug grin. Smug grin. I was beginning to think this bike had it in for me in the first half of the day. Well, the end of yesterday, the first half of the day when the brakes were being an absolute bind. But indicator fixed with super glue and some tape. And then I thought maybe just the switch is dirty on the switch gear. So now look, that one works, the other side works, this side works, other side works, this side works. Literally done nothing other than fiddle with the switch a few times, and that appears to have fixed it. So that is that fixed, and that's a good thing. So now that we've done actually all the things that I think it actually needs to get it through an MOT, now we're into the modification stage. Yep, we're not just going to leave this standard and a horrible aftermarket fairing. We're going to make it better-ish without spending very much money. This will be fun. This will be good. This will be touring spec. And there are some things that are going to be critical for safety and for actually helping me get all the way up to John O'Groats. First one, headlights. A 28-year-old halogen headlight with a naff fairing in front of it probably isn't going to be brilliant. And so for scaring the stags off in the middle of the Scottish Highlands, I have bought some cheap Chinese headlights, like spotlights. I kind of hope the beam is a little bit better than what they're showing on the picture. They were £20 for the pair, so they're probably quite crap. But they're going to be better than what's currently fitted, well, in addition to what's currently fitted, so they are going on. So I had two choices for actually having some feeling left in my fingers in the middle of the night in Scotland in summer, because it does get quite fresh up north. And the choices were wearing my nice Alpine Stars heated gloves, but the battery doesn't actually last that long, or buying some heated grips. I will actually admit, I bought this pair because I was going to put them on my Tuono for riding over winter. Then I bought a winter hack and haven't put them on my Tuono. And so now they're going on the Cancer Beater instead. And they're going to add value when I come to sell it, so I think that's a worthy investment. I will be able to feel my hands, which I find useful for riding a motorbike, and I've added value to the bike for when I sell it. Next on the list is a very cheap piece of plastic. Basically this slides over the throttle and you can use it to rest your wrist against, and it's in effect cruise control. And trust me, it might look like a flimsy piece of plastic. That will make all of the difference when you've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and, have I mentioned hundreds of miles to go in a day. And last on the list for today is a USB charging point. It's not actually critical for the bike. It might be useful for keeping my phone or whatever sat-nav I use charged, and especially useful if you actually want to watch any of this on videos, because otherwise once we get past pit stop 2, you won't get any footage, because all my batteries will be flat. So, time to delve into the wiring of the bike and make all these things be alive. I had the bike basically complete and finished and MOTable, and what I've done is basically taken it all apart. But it isn't that much. I've taken the nose cone off, which is actually a bit of a task on its own because all the fasteners are a little bit old and it probably hasn't been off, well, possibly since about 1997. So that was a bit of a faff to get off, but it is now off. And I've taken the tank off, which was only basically bolted on with one bolt anyway, because I want to run the wiring in sensible places. I want everything to be able to be turned off when the bike is turned off, so it can't run flat if I leave it turned on in a car park or something overnight. So I've broken into the fuse box. broken into. I've opened the fuse box up, and the fuse at the end here is for the fan. And so, because the fan doesn't actually need to be running very often, if I overload some wiring and blow the fuse, it's only the fuse for the fan, so we can probably live without it. The nice thing with that is the positive connection out of the fuse is on all the time that the ignition's on, but is always off when the ignition's off. So it is a switched feed. So my heated grips are basically going to run off my fan circuit. So I spliced into the wiring down here, off the bottom of the fuse, and added in a loop with a connector, and then the negative from the little wiring loom that comes with the heated grips disappears through here into the battery under there. So it's quite nice and neat. I've then run the wiring loom for the heated grips with the standard wiring loom. I might even put a cable tie in there at some point. Loops through the front and sticks up here, basically follows the standard loom. I've also already fitted the first grip. Look at that. Doesn't matter where I go, the cable won't chafe on, get in the way of the brake and stuff like that, so that's good. And if I go to the other side, I will show you how I like to take grips off. So I like to push things in holes. And so what I like to do is squeeze a long screwdriver up the hole here, and then I can lever the screwdriver up, creating a little bit of a gap underneath it, and squirt some brake cleaner up the hole. Easy with two hands when I'm not holding a camera. Then I can sort of wiggle the screwdriver all the way around the outside of the grip, and that basically lubricates into the grip. Then the grip can just slide off. Don't need to cut it. If I ever wanted to, I can stick it back on. And to get the new grip on is pretty much the reverse process. Actually on the throttle grip side one, I have actually glued it in place because it was actually a little bit loose. This side, squirt a bit of brake cleaner up there so it's got a bit of lubrication, slide it on because it's nice and tight going over the shaft, and then basically when the brake cleaner dries, our hole is nice and snug with our shaft. Beautiful. We are looking good. Heated grips that are working. They are getting warm, so that's a good sign. And if I turn the ignition off, everything goes off. Perfect. Heated grips are on. Throttle buddy is attached. Bar ends are back on. We're looking good. Except it's 5:30. I've been here all day, and I was supposed to be building an engine for TT today as well. So it's not gone entirely to plan. The next bit on the list is, of course, to put the spotlights on. But that means putting the fairing back on and finding some wiring out of the headlight to connect everything up. And what I'm actually going to do instead is have a tidy up and go home, and we'll crack on with this next time I've got a couple of hours. So I'll be back pretty soon.